The Trump administration has sparked outrage with the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelan immigrants. The deportations took place over the weekend of March 15 to 16, 2025. The Trump administration sent the immigrants to a prison in El Salvador. The move has drawn criticism from human rights groups and immigration advocates. They argue that the deportations violate international law and put the lives of vulnerable individuals at risk. The situation is rapidly evolving, with legal challenges and protests expected in response to the administration's actions. The deportations come amidst heightened tensions between the United States and Venezuela. The Trump administration has taken a hard-line stance against the Venezuelan government, imposing sanctions and calling for regime change. The administration has accused the Venezuelan government of human rights abuses, corruption, and drug trafficking. The deportations are seen as part of the Trump administration's broader strategy to pressure the Venezuelan government. However, critics argue that the deportations are inhumane and counterproductive. The Venezuelan immigrants who were deported had been living in the United States for varying lengths of time. Some had been in the country for decades, while others had arrived more recently. Many of the deportees had fled Venezuela seeking asylum from political persecution or economic hardship. They now face an uncertain future in El Salvador, a country grappling with its own challenges of poverty, violence, and corruption. The deportations have also raised concerns about the Trump administration's commitment to due process and the rule of law. Critics argue that the administration is using the Venezuelan immigrants as pawns in its political battle with the Venezuelan government. They also express concern that the deportations could set a dangerous precedent, making it easier for the administration to target other immigrant groups in the future. The Trump administration's legal basis for the deportations rests on the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This act, signed into law by President John Adams, grants the president broad powers to detain and deport citizens of enemy nations during times of war. President Trump invoked this act on Friday, March 14, 2025, through an executive order. The executive order declared Venezuela an enemy of the United States, citing the Venezuelan government's alleged involvement in drug trafficking and support for terrorism. The administration argues that the Alien Enemies Act gives the president the authority to deport the Venezuelan immigrants without providing them with due process. They maintain that the act allows for the summary deportation of individuals deemed to be a threat to national security. The administration has identified the deported Venezuelans as members of the Tren de Aragua gang, a criminal organization operating in Venezuela and other parts of Latin America. However, the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act has been met with widespread criticism. Legal experts argue that the act is outdated and unconstitutional. They contend that it violates fundamental due process rights guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment. Critics also point out that the act has rarely been used since its inception and has never been tested in court in the context of mass deportations. The Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act is seen as a dangerous expansion of executive power. Critics warn that it sets a dangerous precedent that could erode civil liberties and undermine the rule of law. They argue that the act should not be used as a tool to circumvent due process or target specific immigrant groups based on their nationality.